Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jimmy Rex Show. Today I am here with Brady Williams. I had the chance to meet Brady a couple months ago at a symposium downtown at the Salt Lake City Library, and immediately just really connected with Brady as just really struck me as a very loving, unique person that I wanted to kind of find out more about, and I really appreciate what you had to say that day. So appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
It's been good to get to know you a little bit here. So the reason why we were both there is it was a symposium that was basically took people from Mormon backgrounds that do it different ways than the norm. And me and you probably couldn't be any different in our backgrounds. I'm 36 years old, never been married, no children. You are polygamous, 5 wives, 25 children, and you now have 2 grandchildren, 3 grandchildren.
2 grandchildren.
2 grandchildren.
Yep.
Okay.
47.
Excellent. So I want to kind of start out with tell us a little bit about how your dynamic of your family is. How does that look? Like you have 5 wives, 25 children. Explain a little bit of what just the dynamic of your family.
Yeah, so, I grew up mainstream LDS till I was 16, 17 years old, and then converted to Mormon fundamentalism, the AUB group. And there I just, got married and married and married and married and married. And pretty soon, 5 wives and 25 kids later, here I am.
Here you are. And so how did you start your first marriage? How old were you at that point?
I was 21.
21, okay.
Yeah, I was 21 when I married Paulie, 22 when I married Robyn, 25, 24, 25, I can't remember when I married Rosemary. And then a couple years later, I married Nonie. And then when I was 29, I married Rhonda.
Wow, okay.
So by the time I was 29, I was done.
You had
been
married 5 times. So like I said, our
Yeah.
paths probably couldn't be any more different in that regard. Do you ever forget the names of your kids, or can you remember all 25?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right off the top of your head.
Yeah, I do the dad thing, like, Josh.
Well, I know my dad, we only had 7 kids, which is a lot, and he to this day calls all of us the wrong names all the time.
Sure. But if you asked me to name all my kids, I could name them.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure, you get, upset.
I love it. Well, and so you and your family had your own television show on TLC called My 5 Wives.
That's right.
And so tell us a little bit about that. What made you want to do something like that, like the TV show? What was it that you thought, why go into letting somebody into that private life of yours?
Sure.
And let them in?
Well, for years we had been approached by different networks and producers trying to get us to do a show. And like when Big Love was going, they asked us to do an after show, how they do the after shows, and where we'd sit and discuss the previous episode and how realistic was it and stuff. And they just didn't, the offer just wasn't good enough, because this is a very conspicuous lifestyle. I mean, it's illegal. And if we're going to put everything on the line, we need to be compensated and believe in it. And the show they were offering, and every other show that was offered to us, was to...
Were they trying to exploit?
Yeah, it was a little bit scandalous, a little bit, they just wanted to do the dark side of it all, or titillating. And then the producers who approached us about this show with TLC had a different story. And so we were willing to go down that road and that adventure, for sure.
Well, because your situation is so unique. Even polygamists kind of reject the way that you and your wives and family live, in the sense that you're not a member currently of a fundamentalist church. You guys just believe in the actual relationship style that you have, right? Explain that.
Yeah, so, a little bit of history to understand. So
Please,
I was mainstream LDS until I was 17. And then I was fundamentalist LDS until it's been 12 years, so maybe 35 years old.
And do you mind if I stop you real quick? Because that's an intriguing part of the story, is how did you go from mainstream LDS to fundamentalist polygamous LDS?
Okay. My dad converted to the AUB, and through study and doing the Mormon history, and any real scholar of Mormon history will realize that there's some real inaccuracies in the mainstream story, at least the most popular storyline. And so he presented it to us kids and my mom and said, hey, here's the AUB, and I really think there's something to it. And after I studied, my whole family joined, and then I joined maybe, I don't know, 6-9 months later on my own terms after I investigated it. And then I was wholesale into that for, till 35. And I mean, I served it, I drank that Kool-Aid, it was dark blue and delicious, man.
How hard was that to go from mainstream LDS? I mean, did your dad take on more wives at that point then, or did you take on more wives first? Or
no, my dad got married again.
Okay.
He got married 2 more times.
Was that difficult to see your dad take on additional wives in that time?
It was tough, but I really believed it. I was a true believer, and so I went in wholesale, and I became I was the best little Mormon boy. And then I was the best little Mormon fundamentalist.
Okay.
As good as I could be, I climbed the ladder. I became a bishop. I became a 70 apostle.
Oh, wow. What age were you when you became a 70 apostle?
I was 30.
Okay.
29 maybe. I was probably 29 when they named me to that.
And is part of taking the wives, is that required to move up the ladder in the religion, or was that more so? I've heard your story enough. I know that you are unique in the sense that you didn't ever aspire to take on more wives. You just actually happened to fall in love over and over again with these different women. Is that?
That's right. Yeah. So the first wife was just like any other man out there. I just found her, fell in love, we dated, and I married Paulie. And I never really chased any. There's a lot of men out there, and they send their wives out to find another wife or whatever, and I just wasn't going to have any of that. And I was fortunate enough that every one of my wives pursued me in one fashion or another. From their father actually coming and saying, "Hey, my daughter's interested," to them just dropping the big hint and and making it very obvious that they wanted to investigate being in my family. And so I just kind of prayerfully considered, and they came.
So each time that you took on another wife, would that be a family decision with the other wives, or was that kind of just known that, hey, if I'm going to take on more wives, that might be part of the program? Or did you have a sit down or a talk with the other wives every time, or how does that conversation go?
Yeah, of course they were considered. They had a voice and they had a vote, and there was other women that were really interested in coming into our family that the wives just put the kibosh on and said, no, we just don't feel good about it. And I actually felt really good about it, and I was like, no, I really think she should be. And at that time it was just Paulie, Robyn, and Rose, and the one woman I'm thinking of, and they just says, I'm sorry, we're not. And so we ended it.
Well, and that's probably what's helped your family, because so kind of fast forward, you decide you're going to leave the Fundamentalist church. Most polygamists, I think every other polygamous person I've ever met or heard about, is very closely tied to the religion itself.
Yeah.
And so how did that work for you? How did the decision come about to leave the church? And then I want to follow that up with asking how that affected the family and how you guys decided to stay together.
So there was it was a journey. And I've always been one who asks the questions, and I'm unafraid of the answer. And there were just some serious questions as I keep studying, and there were the concepts of male superiority within the fundamentalist group, and bigotry, racial and gender, and sexual orientation, all of these things that they just didn't stand up to the glare of my inspection. And I was just like, but I was so deep in. And I was a leader in this group, and I had every one of my wives, either their father or their grandfather is an apostle or the prophet. Wow. And so it was a very scary move to make.
And so when you started kind of going down that path, obviously it's a progression, like you said. There's not like it just one thing that maybe happened or whatever. At what point did you alert your wives that you were having these doubts and things like that?
Yeah, so there were several aha moments for me, And one of the deepest ones was I'm a wilderness survival nut, and I was back at this wilderness survival week, and out in the woods, and I met this. Have I told you this story?
No, I've never heard this story. Please share. No.
It could be the long. I'll give you the short version because there's the long version and the short version. But I met this young man named Justin, and so real short, where I'm in I think it's the Minneapolis airport. I don't know why I had a layover there, but I did to get to New Jersey, flying into Newark, and I'm just sitting there waiting for my connecting flight, and I see this guy, and he's tattooed. He's probably mid-20s, and skinhead, and he's got tattoos crawling up out of his shirt collar, and he's in the smokers lounge and smokers area, and he's smoking on a cigarette, and I'm just walking by. I don't know why I catch his eye, but I do, and he just looks at me and he smiles, and I was just like, whatever, and I go on to my gate, and then I get on the plane, and sure enough, this guy walks by me and he looks at me and oh, hi, on the same flight, and I don't think anything of it. And then I get to Newark, and we get on the same bus to go to this, and two and two put together, we're going to the same wilderness retreat. And through the course of this week, I'm just drawn to Justin, because every time I see him being so kind and so loving and courteous and compassionate to everybody. And I watch, and so there's this woman. I tell this story a lot when I speak, but and she's middle-aged, she's heavy-set, she's balding, and she has facial hair, and I just feel kind of pity, and I don't reach out to her, and I don't. I'm just kind of keeping to myself because I'm a priesthood holder and I shouldn't be associating with Gentiles anyway. But I see this woman and I leave her alone, and I notice Justin sitting around a campfire, and it's like lunch or something. He sits down and we have some free time, and he's just sitting there talking to her. And I think, and he's not just saying hi and doing his duty as being kind. He's obviously very interested. He's having a very involved conversation with him. Oh, that's interesting. And then I notice, I call him the Fabio guy, and he's this 30-something-year-old guy who's just ripped and long, gorgeous hair, and everybody wants to be his friend. And I see Justin find him and sits and talks to him. And I knew, something inside me knew that it struck me that Justin didn't see a middle-aged, overweight, balding woman, and he didn't see Fabio, the good-looking 35-year-old guy. He just saw someone to be loved. And I just kept watching him, and he kept on reaching out to me, who was this guy who kept to himself. And he just, hey, how you doing? How's your time? And one night, like 3 or 4 days in, I says, hey, can I talk to you? He's like, yeah, sure. And I says, can I know your story? Like, what's up with you? Like, you're so kind and good. And he's just like, dude, I love telling my story. And he tells the story about being a troubled teen in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin. And his brother is in prison for manslaughter and had gotten caught up in gangs and drugs and all that. And he says, and I was just following in the footsteps. In the neighborhood, you had very few choices. You either joined a gang or you went to prison. And he says, so I got into it. I did everything. I was in drugs. I was messing around with the girls. I was crime. And my mom, and I was 15. And my mom was like, I'm not going to lose another boy. And so she sent me to the woods of Washington in one of these outward bound programs,
like for troubled youth or whatever.
The troubled youth wilderness thing.
Sure.
And he says, Brady, I shit you not. I am out in the middle of the woods. They bring me a bag of rice and a bag of beans and a gallon of water a day, and they just leave me in this place, and I have no idea how to get out. And I'm sitting there taking a leak, and I turn around, and there's a bear from me to you, and we're this close.
Wow. Okay.
And he says the bear's standing on its legs and is growling. And he said, I knew I was going to get eaten. I was dead. And I just said, God save me. And he said, as soon as I said that, the bear dropped down on all fours, turned and walked away. And he said, me and God for the rest of the week had a conversation. And I asked him, okay, my life's yours. What do I owe you? I get chills even talking about this still, right? Yeah. And he says, all God wanted from me is to love everyone I meet for the rest of my life. And I go, that's it? And he goes, yeah, that's it. That's it. And I go, well, so what religion are you? And he goes, I don't even know what you really mean by that. And I go, well, are you Christian? And he goes, that's that Christ dude, right? Nah, I don't even know anything about him. And which, I'm born and raised LDS, Christ. The only way someone could be this good is if he was Mormon. Or at least Christian. And this guy's going I don't know, that's that Christ dude. But so it was 1 a.m. when we finished talking. I go back to my debris hut out in the middle of the woods, I'm sleeping in the pine needles. And I am so humiliated because it was really revealed to me that I was pathetic. I was so self-righteous. I thought I had it made. I was a 70 apostle. I had 5 wives. I had my quorum of wives. I was going to heaven.
You had checked off the checklist, everything that was required, right?
I had it.
Sure.
I had every single checklist. I didn't have any skeletons in my closet. I didn't need to go to my priesthood leader and confess to anything. I was good. I was it. All I had to do was set cruise control. And I was going to be a God in heaven. And I knew I wasn't as good as Justin. And Justin didn't even know who Christ was. And nothing made sense anymore. And I just went to God and I said, where am I at? I know he's better than me. And it was revealed to me and that I really, everything that I had thought was true was suspect. That I needed to go back and figure it out again. And that was kind of a real crescendo point. And there were other crescendo points.
Sure.
Right?
That's kind of when you give yourself permission to kind of open up the cupboard.
I finally just went, okay, nothing is safe. Not even my idea of God is safe. Everything is going to be sacrificed on the altar of suspicion of my beliefs. And that started me on this path to where now I'm not a fundamentalist. In fact, I public speak and I speak out against fundamentalism and really how dangerous it is to have a fundamentalist mindset.
Well, and so what is the belief now that you have instead, and how has that changed from what you call a dangerous fundamentalist belief?
Well, I'm very open. In reference to my lifestyle, which a lot of people just can't reconcile, and especially polygamists can't reconcile my lifestyle, because if I don't believe in a religious authority, then I'm just an adulterer. Well, I love my family, and I'm married to them because I love them, and I'm committed to them, and I'm committed to my children and this unit that we've created together. And that's a really beautiful thing. And do we have problems? Sure. Over half of the people in America get divorced.
You manage 30 people. That's essentially a small business, right? You always hear small businesses say they're trying to create a family atmosphere. That's legitimately what you have here. Now 32 with your grandchildren.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest, problems that you have managing that? Because is it kind of like managing a small business? You kind of treat it that way, or how do you?
Well, there's some elements that are the same. The challenges. Well, you got to feed them. And
what's your food bill every month?
It's a lot. It's what's the actual food bill is probably close to 1,700,
Okay.
1,600
That's not so bad.
in food.
Yeah.
But we shop really well. I mean, Costco loves us. You know, we need an advertising deal for Costco. But we buy in bulk, and we do really well.
So what are the biggest struggles that come up managing? I mean, do you is it just having enough time to spend with all 29 other members of the family?
Yeah, so for me personally.
For you personally.
Yeah, me personally, one of the things that I lay awake at night the most is that I won't have enough time. And so, because I get it, I mean, there's only one of me. And so I sacrifice a lot of what a normal man might, free time and hobby time and friend time. I just don't have it. Like me and you, Jimmy, that's, you get to do what you want. You can travel and do the things that you do. And, and that's great.
Well, I have sacrifices to live the way I do, right?
You're right.
Like everybody, we kind of pick and choose the path of sacrifice that we take.
Exactly. And so some of the things I sacrifice, but I also have the benefit of a huge family and children who all love me and look toward me, and some of the validation that gives me as a father and a husband. And so I really love that part of it, and I love to be depended on, and so I do that.
Well, it's super admirable. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast was really to talk about. It's a podcast that really highlights exceptional people. That's kind of my whole platform that I'm trying to, share with other people on this podcast. And you in particularly, I mean, to manage the family, because I've seen like you guys interact a little bit, and I've kind of watched that. And it legitimately, you guys have a great family structure, and it's so untraditional. So what are a couple of the key things that you've been able to do to keep that peace between the wives and the kids and just that whole dynamic? What are some things that you do?
Well, I've abandoned the patriarchal structure to where the man is the head of the home, right? I mean, I still try to, I am a gifted leader, and so it'd be a pity not to utilize my leadership skills. But I've taken that in a different context. Like, we certainly, each one of the wives, their vote counts absolutely as much as my vote. Like, they trump me all the time. Like, nope, we're not doing that. Well, okay, So their voice has to be just as important as my voice, and that's different than the typical fundamentalist, and dare I say, even LDS family. I mean, we could get real controversial if we want to go down.
No, fair enough. I mean, I think anybody listening understands what you know what you're referring to.
But yeah, I mean, I think I try really hard. As my number one thing in life is to be a husband and a father, absolutely, and the provider, and that's just the role that I most identify with, and so I'm most committed to that, and that takes the sacrifice of maybe I'm not as good a friend as I want to be, or I don't have hobbies. I mean, I do have things outside of the family, like I'm going to Africa in April with the NGO that I work with, and we're trying to get a school going and help relieve some slavery in Africa. So
wow, very cool.
Yeah, so that's fun.
Are you taking any of the family with you, any of your wives or kids?
Not this trip.
Not this trip.
Yeah, but we're dedicated as a family.
Well, and as they're growing up, are you trying to help? Like, I guess, do you want them to continue in a polygamous relationship in their own lives, or do you not care? And how do they kind of see it? Do they want to have polygamous families, your children as well?
None of my children so far want to do it. I mean, if you were to ask my kids, and some of my kids have been asked, so would you ever live polygamy? They'll say no. But with that said, I would never change my childhood.
Sure.
I had 5 moms, scoreboard, I mean, there was always someone there to love me. There was always someone there to pour me a bowl of Cheerios, or, we have a whole football team when we want to play on Saturday, and I didn't even have to go outside of the family to do it.
Yeah.
So they have all of these things that say that it was the best childhood they ever had. But they also see how hard we try. And it's no easy task.
Yeah, it takes a lot of humility to be able to live in that relationship. I think, I know you said that you're an open book. I wanted to ask, like, do jealousies come up? I mean, sexually, obviously, there's some, I just know with my own experiences in life and with other people that I know, is that a difficult part of the relationship?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Of course, jealousy is a problem. And, well, privacy is a big deal. I never, ever divulge a confidence. That's one thing that I think I've done well from day one as a polygamist. I try to be as fair as I can be, which means you can't be perfectly fair, but you can be as fair as you possibly can be. And I think a real key, and I have a story to tell maybe if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
So early on, right after I married Rosemary, I was building my house, and we were in between. We rented a room from Rosemary's mom, and we're sitting there having a conversation. And Rosemary's gone. I don't know where she was, but I had the opportunity. It was just me and Rosemary, my mother-in-law, sitting in the living room, and we're talking. And we had a really good relationship, and I was just going on about Rosemary. How much I loved her, how beautiful she was, what an amazing person she was, and she's just sitting there looking at me, and I see her like looking at me like, what's up with you? What are you trying to angle at? And as the face I got, I was like, what? And she's like, you really mean that, don't you? Well, yeah. I am just head over heels in love with your daughter. She means everything to me. And Rosemary's my third wife. And she says, and now Rosemary's mother is like one of the grand matriarchs. Like she's
of the church that you got.
Yeah, the AUB. Like she's been in polygamy for 50 years at that point, 45 years at that point. She's seen it all. And she says, what you have is, if what you say is true, that's so rare. And I go, what are you talking about? That you actually love your plural wife. And I go, this is coming from Donna, and I'm just naive. And I go, no way. Why would anybody marry a woman if they weren't head over heels in love? And she says, there's different reasons. And sadly, I came to find as I matured into the group and became a leader and started having people coming to me with all of their issues. That's absolutely true. I firmly believe that if I had to put a number to it, maybe 90 to 95% of polygamous marriages are they're not marrying because they're head over heels in love. There's that chemistry. There's like, I would do anything for you, sweetie, and you look at them and your heart skips. That type of love, right? They're doing it out of a sense of duty, maybe out of a power grab, kind of you have to do it to go to heaven. Right. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I heard, well, I have to marry another wife so that I can keep my first wife. Because the fundamentalist belief is that, if you don't have your quorum of wives, that you'll not have any of them. Right? Yeah. Right? You'll just be an angel in heaven. That's Mormon doctrine, by the way. But I never married for that. I'm so grateful that I fell head over heels in love with all five. And I think that's been a real key to the success, is because I am totally invested in them as a being. And it's almost like I don't have a choice but to be, because I'm so in love.
Well, and I want to kind of, on that point, I kind of want to go back again when you did leave the Fundamentalist church. How did the wives all kind of come to that decision to go with you? Because they all left, you said, prominent families. Yeah. And then follow-up is, how did those families then treat you, and how do they treat you today?
Yeah. So I've said it a million times that for me to leave the group may be significant, but it was nothing compared to what it took for my wives to leave the group. I mean, I was born and raised to challenge authority. If you know my dad, that's what he does. And he taught me to always ask. My wives were born and raised to say yes, to toe the line. And for them to stand up and do what they did and question authority, question everything that they believed, and say what is true, was really amazing. And slowly but surely over about a 5-year period of time, they all came to it on their own. I mean, they would ask questions, but there was never any compulsion or, hey, you need to leave because I'm leaving, or you need to question this because I'm questioning this. It's just, this is what I'm looking at.
Well, that really speaks to who they are as people as well.
Yeah.
And so how did the families react? I mean, and do you have...
it was tough.
And to day to day, are they all still in the church?
In the group?
Church, yeah.
Yeah.
And how's that relationship with them and you and the whole thing?
Very strained. Some not as strained as others. But like Paulie's parents, they're really nice and treat me like a good son. And but you know, others are pretty tough. You know, and there's been some real drama. And Rosemary's revelations about her dad, who's the prophet, you know, that went all over the press, and it's tough. And most of them really don't like me. In fact, I was labeled a son of perdition.
Oh, okay. That's what I was kind of wondering, as if you're kind of seen as like this guy that pulled them away from their heritage or whatever.
For sure. Okay. Yeah, I'm the author of they're going to go to hell, and it's because of me.
Got it. Well, and so skipping back again to the TV show, what was the decision to go on the show, and what benefits came from doing the TV show? We did it for 2 years? Or 3 years?
We did it for 2 full seasons.
Yeah.
We went on the show to give a voice and to show, hey, you know what, polygamy isn't just about religious wackos, you know, and you can be, we call it normal times 5, you know, and we're just a normal family. We're just bigger and a little bit more dynamics than the typical family, and we wanted to get that message out there. Did we? I don't know. I was disappointed with some of the stuff. I thought, you know, it shows the high of the highs and the low of the lows, and there's always creative editing. You know, is it all real? Yeah, it was all real, but you know,
I did
the context.
I did a TV show back in the day, like 12 years ago, called Not on the First Date, and I would line up a guy and a girl on a date, and we would film it. And I realized very quickly, I mean, I could make the date, no matter what really happened, I could make every single date look as good or as bad as I wanted.
Oh, yeah.
I remember one particular time, they were at dinner, and it was a boring episode, so I was trying to spice it up. And the guy he literally says, "What the heck?" And then he follows it up with, "I think something just touched my leg." Well, when I edited it, it says, "What the beep? Something just touched my beep." And she's laughing, and so the whole thing looks completely more inappropriate than it actually was. I was just trying to spice it up. It made him look like he was being vulgar at the table.
Right.
You know? So you can really mess with it if you want to.
and me and the executives got in some real heated exchanges because there was some creative editing back in LA that I was, you know, one of them involved my teenage daughter, and they creatively edited it to where it seemed like she was having it when we were having a birds and the bees talk. And I just says, hey, you know, I just think premarital sex is a bad idea, and if I were you, you know, I'd really encourage you to wait till you get married. And they have my 12-year-old daughter. They took a scene where they were interviewing me and her about cleaning her bedroom.
Oh no!
And she's like, "Dad, duh," because I was getting on her about something, you know. And they spliced it into that scene, and her having a fit that I'm asking her not to have sex at 12 years old. And I got the final cut I got it every Monday or Tuesday before the next Sunday. And I saw that cut. I was sitting there watching on my iPad, and I got on the horn with one of the vice presidents of TLC, and it just says, if that makes it on Sunday night's airing, don't bother sending the cameraman back. And we were only halfway through filming. And she's like, you can't do that. You're contractually obligated. And I says, sue me. It's not going to happen. And she says, Brady, I get it. I understand, but it's too late. I mean, it's released, and they're cutting it. They're making it. And I said, I don't care. I don't care what you have to do. That will not make it. And to her credit, she pulled whatever string she had to, and it's a real, if you go back and watch that scene, it's a real rough.
Sure.
Most people can't tell, but I can tell where they cut it out.
It made it look a little bit better for you. No, I think that's yeah, you can't be making it look like your daughter's trying to be promiscuous.
I know.
I mean,
it was such a misrepresentation.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take some creative editing, but there were things like that maybe 2 or 3 times.
So was there some negatives that came out of doing the TV show then? I mean, if you could do it over again, would you do it again? And
I would do it only if the premise behind it was more of a family-friendly show. Because let's face it, the polygamous shows that are out there, the reason people tune in is because they want to see if the wife's going to leave. They're there to be titillated. They're not there to feel good.
Yeah, if you guys are all getting along, it's kind of a boring TV show, I guess.
Right.
So
America doesn't watch a polygamy show to feel better. They watch it to see a train wreck. And honestly, we probably didn't get the ratings we wanted to because we just didn't give them enough train wreck.
Fair enough.
And my wives get along better than that.
Well, so do you think that more men should be in polygamous relationships, or do you feel like, what's your opinion about monogamy versus polygamy and everything?
I think I'm very open that I just think polygamy is so rarely lived for the right reasons, and it's so easy for men to dominate women that it should probably die out. And I'm a polygamist with 5 men, and I think it should. I don't think that. I mean, I think that a man should have the right. I think grown adults should have the right to live however they want, and nobody should have a say in it, with the caveat that it's non-compulsory. And
explain that a little bit.
Yeah,
I know what you mean, but
like if a woman, even if it's cultural compulsion, that's still compulsion. Like they're born and raised to live. Well, if they're never presented with an alternative, that's compulsion. I really think that it's really important for these closed societies to be opened. Closed polygamous societies, and not just polygamous, but fundamentalism. Fundamentalism is a real problem in the world today. The same thing that makes an Islamic extremist strap on a bomb vest in Afghanistan is the same reason that a little girl has to get married at 12 years old down in Short Creek. And dare I say, many other fundamentalist things. Yeah. It's the same reason that, I mean, forgive me, but I think the same reason that women can't have the priesthood. It's these old traditional fundamentalist views that are short-sighted and frankly part of the patriarchy. This idea of male domination.
I think it's a very fascinating way that you can look at that. I think that you're correct. I think, in the same sense that I believe that anytime I travel, for example, my eyes are just open to more things, right? I see more things, more opportunities come to me, and all of a sudden my ideals of what I thought, certain groups of people or races or whatever might have been is completely changed, and every single time for the better. And so I think as long as people have opportunity, let them make the choices they make. But it's very interesting, like you said, if they've never known anything besides polygamy, they're going to think that's the only way, that's the right way, that's the best way.
Yeah, do they really have a choice?
Yeah.
If you don't even know that there's something different, no, you don't have a choice. And so that's why education is so important. And that's why I'm out there trying to educate people, and particularly fundamentalists, that there's something else out there. And a fundamentalist, maybe even a polygamist, obviously is who I can speak to with the most clarity and say, you don't have to sacrifice your family. I didn't. There is another way. You really can embrace a new progressive worldview without losing everything. And it's called love. It's called tolerance. It's called acceptance. And those principles, they're really strong. They're really powerful, and they work. And and you can go from dude, I was as extreme and fundamental as you could be. I mean, I was the poster child, and now I'm the other way, and I'm really trying to raise a bunch of kids to be dynamic people that can change the world, and I think they are.
I love it. Well, and your kids, they're starting to graduate high school now. Some are in college and things like that, right? Like, give us an idea of what are some of your kids doing now?
Yeah. So So, well, my oldest, she's wonderful. She's beautiful. She has 2 grandsons, and she's just the stay-at-home mom up in Montana. I have another daughter who is going for her PhD in prosthetic design. Another one is an environmental scientist, and she has dreams of well, she's going to be going to a master's program in Colorado. And then my son, he helps make chocolate, and he's engaged to a young lady in Ecuador, and they're about to get married.
Very cool.
You know, and I have 4 daughters who have 5 daughters who are on full ride scholarships in university, and another son in college. All have scholarships and are doing great things, you know. And then a whole bunch of kids coming up, you know. So
are you guys done now? Have you guys had your final kid?
Yes.
Or all 5 wives are now
finished? We're done. 25's where it ends.
25. Did you ever have like a number you wanted to get? Because you know when you're little, you always like, oh, I'm going to have 7 kids. And then
yeah, I mean,
were you always like, as soon as I get to 25, I'm done having
Well, when I was in the LDS church, I thought I'd have 4 kids just like my mom and dad did.
Sure.
But then I joined the polygamist group, and I thought I'd have 50. And then I got at about 20 kids, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of kids to take care of. And then, you know, the last couple kids were probably oops babies, but, you know, we're sure glad we had them.
I love it. Well, I'm glad I could have you on. I think it just breaks down. I know when I was little, a legitimate fear of what a polygamist looked like or was, right? You just don't know. There's so many things you hear. And I wanted to get an interview. After meeting you, I knew that anybody that listened to how you really believe and how your family functions and everything else, it just kind of changes, hopefully, that view of what you guys have been doing. And, you know, like you said, even though that fundamentalist has those negatives, every case is completely different, and it's that importance to treat everybody with love, I think is the key message of the whole thing. So.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
I appreciate you, man.
Hey,
I look forward to seeing you again soon. And I believe we're going to be speaking together up at the U in July, right?
At the Sunstone Symposium.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to come out, I'll put it on the website, and we'll see you then.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
All right, thanks, Brady.
Take care.